They say the hardest goodbyes are the quiet ones. No slammed doors, no speeches, just a nod, a bag at your feet, and the long walk to a truck that only starts on the second turn. I spent 40 years hanging from poles in the wind, fixing what storms bent out of shape. You'd think I could fix a family too. The night my son told me to find my own place, I didn't argue. I gripped the wheel, breathed, and told myself what I always told rookies on bad weather nights. Keep your gloves on, check your footing, and don't trust a line just because it looks dead. Later, when money changed everything, I learned the same rule applies to people. A wire can shock you after the storm has passed. A sun can too. And in the end, when the hallway filled with witnesses and the truth finally had air, I only needed 6 words. Retirement snuck up like an early frost, not because I didn't see it coming, but because the house felt colder the day I said it out loud. We were at the kitchen island in my son's place on Fairfield Avenue, meatloaf on chipped plates, Lily coloring spelling words, the rooster clock ticking above the stove. I cleared my throat. Next week's my last week on the line. Brandon didn't look up from his phone. Congrats, he said, like a man reading a billboard while driving by. Kelsey smiled without warmth. That's huge, Dad. I'll still do breakfast runs to Meijer the bus, I said. Only thing changing is the ladder I'm climbing. Brandon set his phone down, leaned back. Something else is changing. We need privacy. He did the air quotes. This was temporary, you staying here. 8 years is a long temporary, I said, trying to make it a joke. No one laughed. Kelsey folded a dish towel until it was a brick. We love you, she said. Bad news always starts that way, but boundaries matter. Lily needs to see us as the parents. I swallowed the dry aspirin taste. Boundaries were what I taught new guys on Storm Night's cones. Outlocks on radios live. Necessary, not kind. I can find a place, I said. Lily looked up with blue ink on her lip. Grandpa, will you still come to my game? Wouldn't miss it. Brandon scraped his fork like he was finishing a job. Weekend move-out works. I've got a guy who needs a room, pays cash. Weekend's fine, I said. It came out calm. Inside, something old let go. My duffel sat by the door. An hour later, Brandon's old baseball bag with a zipper that stuck halfway. My shirts were stuffed in like rags. On top, a grocery sack said in Kelsey's neat round hand, Dad's bathroom stuff. Thanks, I said. We'll square up utilities later, Brandon called from the garage, big light buzzing. I've been carrying a lot. I didn't answer. Men who talk about carrying a lot are already calculating interest. The F-150 started on the second turn, like she always does when she wants to remind me who's boss. Fort Wayne at night is streetlights on wet pavement, the Maumee smelling like leaves. I drove without the radio passing the marathon on Bluffton, then circled back. I wanted a coffee and a minute to feel like a man who still had choices. Inside, the clerk slid a cup across without making a big deal of me existing. I stared at the rack of scratch-offs like a man staring at bolts he doesn't need. 2 of the blue ones, I said. He tore them free. I handed a 5 and we muttered thanks like paying a toll. The VFW Post 857 smelled like old varnish and coffee strong enough to stand a spoon. Earl was under the photograph of boys who went to Vietnam and came back older than their birthdays. He looked at my bag, then my face. Room's made up, he said. That's how we tell each other we're not alone. Up the creaking stairs, the spare room was square and clean twin-bed window, holding a slice of streetlight and leafless branches. I set the bag down and sat. The silence had weight, but not judgment. I laid the tickets on the nightstand like 2 small chances. I don't talk to God about money. I talk to him about storms and keeping the crew safe. Still, I said the same thing I always say before a job, let it be enough. The coin in my pocket was a quarter with bite marks. I scratched the first ticket, slow numbers appearing like shy mice, 7, 14, 29. Nothing. I laughed at myself, the soft, embarrassed kind. The second ticket felt thicker. I angled it under the streetlight's wash and started at the bottom just to do something different. 8. Another 8. A third. I paused. The rules on the back said 3 of a kind meant a prize. I cleared more silver. 888 until the number sat there so large my eyes watered. 2 million. I didn't whoop. Men my age don't whoop unless a boat motor finally turns over. I set the quarter down and folded my hands like a man waiting to be scolded by a pastor. Earl, I called, trying to keep my voice ordinary. He opened without knocking. "You okay?" "I think so," I said, and laughed once because I sounded like a liar. I think I just did something foolish that turned out foolish in my favor. Earl squinted at the ticket, then whistled low. "He doesn't cuss in the hall." "That the big one?" "Looks like 2 million big," I said. He leaned on the door jamb like he was holding up the building. "You'll want a lawyer before you want a party. Then you'll want quiet." "Quiet I can do." I didn't call Brandon. I didn't call Kelsey. I didn't call anyone. I took pictures of the ticket, slid it into the inside pocket of my jacket, and tucked the jacket under the mattress like a teenager hiding a magazine. Downstairs, a coffee pot clicked off. A car rolled past outside like a wave. Boundaries. I thought trying the word in my mouth again. When I said it to Cruz, it meant I want you alive at breakfast. When Brandon said it, it meant I want my life simple. I could understand both and still feel cut by one. I took off my boots, left my socks on, and stretched out. The spring under my right shoulder made an honest complaint. I stared at the ceiling where branches made slow shapes and tried on what-ifs like suits I'd never buy. Tell Brandon. Make a down payment on peace. Do nothing at all. Let it be enough, I said once more. I reached for the lamp. The room went dark and kind. The ticket didn't glow. It didn't make a sound. It lay on the nightstand, waiting to teach me what numbers turn people into when they finally change. Morning came with snow pellets pinging the window and the clear, calm feeling you get before a hard job. I signed the back of the ticket, sealed it in a plain envelope, and drove slow. The lottery office took copies, gave me the tax speech, and told me to talk to a pro. I nodded. That was the plan. Earl had a name, Marla Chen, on Calhoun. Her office smelled like manila folders and peppermint. She had a pilot's voice, steady, unrushed. I set the envelope on her desk the way a man lays down a truth. "Congratulations," she said like a nurse who's delivered this news before. "First, breathe. Second, don't post online. Third, we build guardrails so money doesn't set your life on fire." Not much of a party left in me. "Fires start in quiet houses," she said. "Here's the structure." She drew boxes on a legal pad, revocable living trust, updated will beneficiary forms, and translated them into porch language. A trust is a bucket with a lid you control. The will says who gets the rest. Goal: privacy, clarity, fewer courthouse headaches. "Clarity I can do," I said. "Banking separate, no cosigners, no casual loans, keep numbers quiet." She tilted her head. "Any shared Apple IDs with family, a grandkid iPad maybe? That's how bank texts leak into the wrong room." "I let Lily use my Apple ID for a radio app when I moved in," I admitted. "Never unwound it." "We will. New phone, new email, new bank. 3 Rivers is fine. Walk in, be polite, say as little as possible." We covered lump sum versus annuity and the tax bite. "Neither choice is wrong," she said. "Pick the one you'll sleep with." "I sleep with Simple." "Then Simple it is. Now who matters to you?" "Lily," I said. 10. Tough kid. St. John's keeps me steady. The VFW roof leaks when it shouldn't, and I want a small place of my own, coffee pot no one has to ask permission to use. She wrote as I spoke. "We'll earmark a $529 for Lily. Modest gifts for St. John's and the Post. Maybe a small Ivy Tech scholarship for trades." That would be right. She slid a 1-page privacy sheet across. "Indiana doesn't promise anonymity on lottery claims. Keep your circle small. Expect people to change." "Already happening," I said. At 3 Rivers, the branch smelled like warm paper and ink. Jean at the desk set me up with a fresh account debit card in a sleeve and text alerts to my number. I moved a small test deposit and felt the phone buzz. Clean. That night I reset my Apple ID, killed the old login, and slept like a porch light finally fixed. By noon the next day, quiet cracked. I was oiling the sticky hinge on the VFW front door when a gray Tacoma clipped into the lot, too hot. Gravel spit. Brandon hop-stepped out, foreman jacket, jaw grinding. "You hiding out?" he said, too loud for the lot. "I live here for now," I said. He waved his phone. "You get a 3 Rivers text at 10:07 because Lily's iPad did. Kelsey saw a deposit posted, so congrats." His smile had no eyes. "How big?" "I'm handling my business properly." "Your business owes us 8 years' rent," he snapped, pulling a crumpled Menards receipt from his pocket like a warrant. Blue Sharpie columns, monthly totals, interest, marched down the back. Market rate, food, utilities, square footage. "You owe me." I looked at the receipt, then at my son. The cold was sun-bright. Our breaths hung between us. "You want to talk money?" I said. "We won't do it in a parking lot with hardware trash." He took a step. Coffee on his breath, sharp as pennies. "You lived under my roof. There's a number for that. Now that you've got money, you can make it right. Or I make it public." I don't respond to threats. He smirked. "Threat just sunlight, Dad. You taught me light is good." "I taught Cruz not to trust a dead-looking line," I said. "That was about staying alive. This is about respect." "You're going to pay me," he said. "I can file at small claims this afternoon. You want it on paper, I'll put it on paper. You do what you think is right. If you want a conversation, we'll do it properly. Neutral ground numbers and receipts, somebody we both respect in the room. Not this." He flapped the receipt. "I've got numbers." "You've got Sharpie on a shopping slip. Bring real ones. I'll bring mine." He blinked at mine like I'd stolen something. He shoved the paper away, jabbed a finger at my chest, then jabbed the air instead. "You always thought you were the hero," he said. "Heroes pay their debts." Earl opened the door a crack behind me. "All good, Walt." "Fine," I said, eyes on Brandon. "We're finishing." Brandon spat into the gravel, turned and climbed in. He revved too hard because anger likes noise. Window down, he leaned out. "You've got my number. Use it to arrange my money. I'll be expecting back rent. With interest." He peeled off dust trailing. I stood there until the lot settled. Earl came to my shoulder. "That your boy's best self?" "No," I said, working a swallow past the tight place in my throat, "but it might be his loudest." "What's next?" "Proper," I said. "We do this proper." For years, that meant cones, locks, radios, keeping rookies alive through ice and wind. Now it meant something smaller and tougher, paper date signatures, a pastor or a mediator. The truth set gently on a table where everyone could see it. I went inside, washed my hands at the bar sink, and wrote a list on a napkin: receipts, utilities, grocery runs, mower repair braces, copay, water heater, childcare, ordinary ways a man keeps a house running even when the deed isn't in his name. Earl tapped the napkin. "Need a folder?" "I need a ledger." "Marla will have one," he said. "And if you want a neutral table, Pastor Rick's got folding chairs." I nodded. The hinge, newly oiled, closed the door with a soft, decided click. Proper had begun. Proper sounded like a stapler. Marla slid a yellow ledger across her desk and set out plastic sleeves. "We're going to turn the last 8 years into ink," she said. "Ink beats memory when people are angry." I emptied my life onto her table. Kroger receipts, Indiana, Michigan power bills, the plumber's invoice marked "no basement flooding since," Venmo screenshots 20, here 100 there with Brandon's notes, "Thanks, Dad," and "cover me till Friday." The 6,000 mower repair I'd put on my card. Peppermint tea and warm toner filled the room while Marla dated sorted slid. She asked short questions, cooking 3-4 nights a week. Sunday breakfast, pancakes, then oatmeal when Kelsey went heart healthy. Childcare pickups, doctor visits, Little League signups, and those Thursday nights they were out. She totaled columns, tapping the page. Here's what you contributed. Here's what you consumed. No lease, no written promise to pay back rent. Courts like paper and signatures, not ought to. Feels strange putting family in boxes. "It isn't to win," she said. "It's to stop a fire. Pressing older family for money crosses lines. The word isn't the point. The boundary is." I'd hated that word at my son's table. Here it felt like a guardrail on a ridge road. She handed me a 1-page letter, plain words, no heat, saying I wouldn't discuss finances in parking lots or by text. Any talk would be face-to-face with a neutral present. Harassment would be answered in court. "Give him a chance to be reasonable," she said. "Pick a table." "St. John's Fellowship Hall," I said. "Pastor Rick keeps a kettle going and the door's open." Pastor picked up on the second ring. "Calm, bright, no surprises," I said. "Folding chairs, long table, prayer." "First," he answered, "potlucks at 6, meet at 5. Plenty of witnesses if manners slip." "Witnesses, not spectacle daylight, that'll do." Back at the VFW, I fed sheets into Earl's flatbed that squealed like a screen door. "Never thought I'd be grateful for junk mail," I said. "Junk turns into proof when folks invent the past," Earl said. Fluorescence buzzed. The hall smelled like floor wax. By 5, coffee drew the regulars. Veterans don't poke fresh bruises. My hands were steadier by the time I rinsed my mug. Near closing, a Three Rivers manager called Brandon had stopped in to clarify details. They told him no, and wanted me to know. "Thank you," I said, "and for keeping the lid on my bucket." I set the phone down and watched a couple of regulars line up darts at the far board. Nobody said my name, but I felt the small mercy of institutions working like they're supposed to, tellers, guarding privacy professionals, speaking softly, doors that close and locks that click. When you get older, respect shows up in quiet ways: someone waiting their turn, a clerk keeping their voice low, a form printed clean so you can read it without squinting. I breathed easier. Proper wasn't warm, but it was steady. And steady is what keeps a roof on in March. I looked at the VFW mirror, the flag above it, like an old oath. Boundaries used to be picket fences. Today, they were teller windows and legal pads. Next morning, the smear started. Donna from 2 pews up texted me, "Kelsey's post caring for elders is holy. Until they freeload 8 years and refuse fair rent. Pray for our family. No names, but our town doesn't need names." Comments bloomed, "Make him pay. Sometimes you have to sue." I set the phone down and walked 2 laps to cool my blood. I wanted to post the ledger. Instead, I called Pastor. "Still on for tomorrow, still on. Come early." Rules are simple. Tell the truth, don't score points. No recording, no shouting, bring paper if you bring accusations. Doors stay open. Doors open, I said. That afternoon, I bought a blue shirt that didn't look like a uniform. Back at the post, Earl pressed a plain envelope into my hand ledger letter, a short note from Marla, and on top a photo of Lily in her softball jersey. "You're getting theatrical," I said. "Truth needs a face," he answered. My heart shifted toward Reddy. We rehearsed like a storm plan. I'd thank them for the roof state. There was no lease show, what I contributed. Ask for quiet and boundaries. Marla would slide totals, Pastor would steer. I'd keep my voice low, no bait. If it broke down, we'd ask a judge. And if lightning strikes, Earl asked, we let the rods work. I slept shallow and woke before dawn, made coffee in the VFW kitchen, read Psalm 15 and the Little League schedule. Even without a harness, you measure days by what needs fixing next. At 4:30, I pulled into St. John's. Lights were on, onion soup mix and ham in the air. 2 rows of folding chairs faced a long table, 6 cups a pitcher, a small wooden cross as a paperweight. Kitchen doors swung as casseroles slid onto warmers. Somebody laughed the way people laugh when life is still good. Pastor shook my hand. "Thanks for choosing a table instead of a battlefield. Tables hold more than swords," I said. Marla arrived with her calm briefcase. She set the ledger in the center like a fair offering. "One ask," she said, tapping the cover. "If voices rise, we pause. If accusations come without paper, we set them down and move on. If respect fails, we end." Agreed. The clock over the serving window ticked toward 5. Earl held up the envelope with Brandon's name written steady across the front. The far door creaked shoes on linoleum. I took a breath and felt my spine stack itself. Earl set the envelope at Brandon's empty place and patted it once like a foreman touching a map. "Let him open that first," he murmured. "Let the paper talk before the anger does." Brandon came in first, chin-high shoulders, forward the way a man steps into a bar fight he's been rehearsing in his head. Kelsey was 1 pace behind, phone in her hand, like a baton mouth already tight. The kitchen doors swung and clattered as a casserole slid onto a warmer. Onion soup mix and baked ham floated through the hall. Pastor Rick met them halfway with his palms out like a traffic officer who respected everyone's destination. "Thanks for coming," he said, gentle but not soft. "Ground rules again, no recording, no shouting, bring paper if you bring accusations. Doors stay open, we tell the truth and go home." Kelsey's thumb hovered over a red circle. "We're entitled to protect ourselves," she said. "You're entitled to speak," Pastor said. "Not to broadcast your neighbor's business. Put it away or this meeting doesn't happen." She stared a second longer than was polite, then slid the phone into her purse like she was sheathing a knife she didn't agree to surrender. We sat. Folding chairs squealed on linoleum. The long table bowed just a hair under a pitcher of water, 6 styrofoam cups, and the small wooden cross Pastor used as a paperweight when the AC kicked on. "I'll open with a prayer," Pastor said, and did simple, nothing fancy, asking for calm hands and clear words. I bowed my head and found a breath I didn't know I'd lost. Brandon pulled a sheaf of papers from a manila folder. "I'll start," he said. since it's my house we're talking about. Pastor nodded. Say your piece. Brandon spread printouts across the table, Zillow comps for 3-bedroom homes within a mile, a chart of market, rent a stack of Kroger flyers circled in blue Sharpie like evidence of a crime. 8 years, he said. You lived under my roof. You ate our food. You used our heat. Temporary, you said. Then you retired and announce it like you're punching out early, and the next day, boom money falls from the sky, and suddenly you're too good to square up. He jabbed a page. This is what you owe rent, utilities, groceries, interest. You can pay. You should pay. I watched his hands move, fast knuckles showing. The boy who used to grip a bat too high had become a man who gripped numbers like a weapon. Marla waited until he stacked his pages like a dealer finishing a hand. She slid our ledger across, centered it so the cross kept the top flat. Thank you, she said, voice level. Here's the paper on our side. These are 8 years of receipts and bank records. You'll see your text too. Thanks, Dad. Cover me till Friday, and the repairs Walt paid for. No lease exists. No agreement to pay rent exists. The law doesn't allow back rent where there was no contract. What it does see is contribution and pressure. Kelsey's lip curled. Pressure. We simply asked for fairness. Marla kept her eyes on the page. We can be frank without being cruel. Asking an older family member for thousands in public after a windfall, that's pressure. This letter she slid a single page forward sets a boundary. Future financial discussions, if any, happen with a neutral present. No more parking lot demands. No more online insinuations. If harassment continues, we'll ask a judge for help. Brandon snorted. Harassment. You lived off me. I lived with you, I said, keeping my voice where Pastor's prayer had left it. I bought food, paid for heat. When the shutoff notice came, fixed the water heater that Thanksgiving Eve covered Lily's braces, copay, and watched your child so you and Kelsey could build your business. That's what family looks like in my book, not invoices. Help. He slapped the ledger with the back of his fingers. Help tenants pay. Tenants sign leases, Marla said. There is no lease. He flicked his eyes to Pastor. You gonna sit there and let him hide behind paperwork? Pastor folded his hands, thumbs slow over knuckles. Paper kept me married, Brandon. Vows are paper. Baptism certificates are paper. The mortgage you bragged about paying off last spring, that's paper. Paper is just promises written down. From the kitchen, someone laughed at a joke about Jell-O salad. The door stayed propped with a chair, the hall filled with the clink and hush of a church doing what churches do, feed people and mind their own business. But the open door meant ears. I didn't mind. Kelsey reached for a printout. Market rent for a 3-bedroom within a mile is... I didn't have a bedroom for 3 of those years, I said. I had a couch and a shower and a job that left me too tired to care where I laid my head. I cooked, I fixed things, I drove Lily, I made your lives easier. We can debate the value of pancakes and working hands, but we can't pretend I was a boarder. I was your father. That's a role, not a rate. Brandon's face flushed at the collar. You think you own the moral high ground because you fried eggs and changed air filters. You love being needed. You always have. You make yourself necessary, and then you hold it over people. I took that like a man takes a nail in his palm and sets the board anyway. If I made myself necessary, it was to get us all through winter. And I never sent you a bill. Marla tapped a line with her pen. Here's the net. Walt's contributions exceeded his consumption. You benefited. Also, social media posts about freeloading elders create reputational harm. We have screenshots. Kelsey's mouth tightened. I asked for prayer. You asked for an audience? Pastor said, not unkind. And you got one. He glanced toward the kitchen with a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. Let's avoid another performance tonight. Brandon pushed his chair back hard enough to squeal. So that's it. He gets to win because he brought a lawyer to church. No, I said. That's not it. I slid the envelope with his name toward him. That's yours. It's not a check. He opened it with a fingernail like he didn't want to owe a tool the favor. Out slid a copy of the ledger summary, the boundary letter, and the photo of Lily in her softball jersey, elbow up. Eyes on the ball. The picture caught him for a heartbeat. He put it face down like it burned. You're trying to guilt me, he said. I'm trying to remind you who's in the middle of this and who shouldn't be, I said. Lily isn't rent. Kelsey's eyes softened, then hardened a cloud passing over and gone. What about fairness for us, she said. We carried you. Pastor leaned in. Let's say we all carried each other. That happens in families. Money muddies the memory. What matters is how we handle today. Today, Brandon said, standing fully, now eyes bright with a shine I recognized from his little league days right before he swung out of his shoes. Today, we stop pretending. You have money. You owe. If you won't do the decent thing, I will ask a judge to make you. Bring paper, Marla said. Real paper, not grocery ads. He gathered his Zillow pages like a gambler, gathering a losing hand, slow to make it look noble. He tucked them under his arm and looked down the open hall where casseroles lined up under tin foil. The light outside had gone blue. Shadows lifted and settled across his face. This was a waste of time, he said to the room, not to me. We'll see you in court. He made it 2 steps, then turned and jabbed a finger not at me, not at Marla, but toward the cross, holding the ledger flat. You're hiding behind that. Pastor didn't flinch. Most of us are, he said. That's kind of the point. Brandon walked. Kelsey followed with a last look at the ledger like it had said something mean about her mother. The door breathed them out to the parking lot. The kitchen clatter returned to regular music. I poured water and missed the cup, then poured again. Pastor put a hand on my shoulder a good weight. You did what you could at a table, he said. Sometimes the next table has a seal on it. Marla packed the ledger with a tenderness that surprised me. Tomorrow, she said, check your mail. If he files, we'll know fast. Earl clapped once soft. If he said and smiled without humor, I'd bet the house he takes a swing. I wiped the spill with a church napkin that said, rejoice in purple script, and thought how words change meaning depending on the room. In the fellowship hall, rejoice meant ham and hymnals and second chances. In my son's mouth, it meant reckoning. In mine, it meant nothing loud, just that a day had ended with the truth set on a table and not swept to the floor. When I stepped into the cold, the lot smelled like exhaust and snow. The sky was the color of tin. Somewhere a starter motor complained, and then caught. I stood for a minute between my truck and the church light and felt something I hadn't felt. Since the worst storm of '98, how relief and dread can shake hands in your chest, and both tell the truth. Proper had made its case. Tomorrow would be the law's turn. Brandon would file. I knew that the way linemen know which way a fallen branch will roll once you cut it loose. Part 5, Small Claims, Big Audience. The envelope from the court looked like a utility bill plain, window black type, the kind you open with a fingernail. Hearing Thursday, Allen County Small Claims, Plaintiff Brandon Haynes, Defendant Walter Haynes, cause unpaid rent. Earl drove without small talk. You want me in the room? Public gallery's fine, I said. No speeches. Scout's honor. The courthouse smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. A bailiff checked names. Chen. Here, Marla said, lifting a hand. We sat on wooden benches that punished fidgeting. Across the aisle, Brandon and Kelsey huddled over printouts. He glanced up, smirked without humor, and kept highlighting. Remember, Marla whispered, I'll speak if needed. UBU straight lines, no heat. I've got 3 straight lines left, I said. I'll spend them wise. The room filled with the ordinary business of small claims. When the judge came in, Honorable Teresa McNabb, eyes like a teacher who'd seen every excuse, twice the room stood and sat in one motion. She respected minutes and moved the docket. By the time she called our case, I'd said the serenity prayer twice. We stepped forward. Plaintiff, she said. Brandon Haynes, my son, answered, trying for low and landing on hot. Defendant. Walter Haynes, Your Honor, I said, with counsel. All right, she said. Mr. Haynes, to Brandon, your claim. Brandon squared his papers like order alone could make them true. 8 years back rent at market rate plus utilities and groceries plus interest. My father lived in my home. He contributed some food and chores, but he did not pay rent. We had an understanding. He retired without warning. Then he came into money and refuses to square up. Judge McNabb wrote a note. Did you execute a written lease? No, ma'am, but it was understood. We discussed a fair number. Understood is not a contract, she said. Any texts, emails, checks noting rent. He flipped pages. No text using that word. We talked in person. But it's common sense people pay to live somewhere. She turned to me. Mr. Haynes. I cooked, cleaned, watched my granddaughter paid bills when the house was short-covered repairs, I said. There was no lease. I was family, not a tenant. Marla slid a summary up like a placemat. 8 years of receipts and bank records. Your Honor, utilities, groceries, repairs, medical copays, child care in kind, plus texts from the plaintiff requesting help. No evidence of a rental agreement. Significant contribution offsets any claim of unjust enrichment. Let me see the texts, the judge said. She read, "Thanks, Dad. Can you cover us till Friday?" Turn to page. Read another. Her lips pressed the way Hoosiers swallow a sigh. "Mr. Haynes," she said to Brandon, absent a written lease or credible evidence of a clear oral contract with definite terms, "Indiana law does not support retroactive rent. You don't turn a guest into a tenant after the fact because circumstances changed." Brandon flushed, "So he just gets to freeload." "Watch your tone," she said. "He's your father here and a defendant with counsel. And words matter. Freeload is not supported by this record." Kelsey shifted to speak. The judge raised a finger. "Ma'am, parties speak when addressed." Marla cleared her throat. "We also note social media posts and parking lot confrontations after Mr. Haynes's lottery win. Not central to the claim, the judge said, but I note the context. Families change when money shows up. Courts get asked to do work kitchens fail to do." She set the packet down. "Ruling claim for back rent is denied. No lease, no agreed sum, no rent owed. Each party bears his own costs. Consider counseling, pastoral or otherwise. This room can't fix what a kitchen broke." The gavel tap was soft and final. Brandon's shoulders fell, then bunched again. He looked around like the walls had betrayed him. We backed into the gallery. Earl tipped 2 fingers from the back row. Pastor Rick sat beside him, hands folded. "In small claims, you don't get applause. You get the mercy of being done." The hallway hummed with the soda machine and shoe squeak. The clock over the elevators ticked us forward. Brandon and Kelsey came out fast, paper edges flashing. He spun on me under the fluorescent buzz. "You think this is over?" he said, teeth tight. "It can be," I said. Maybe the judge had loaned me her calm. "You humiliated me," he said, "in front of half the county." "You filed," I said. I answered. Kelsey's eyes were bright. "You could have just paid. Quietly. Family." "Family paid for 8 years," I said. Quietly. Today was paper catching up. People pretended not to listen and did. The bank lady from the gallery passed with her folders like a tugboat, steady and unwilling to collide. A deputy stood nearby, not speaking, just present. Marla touched my sleeve, the signal to leave. I didn't. I looked at my son until I could see the 10-year-old again, mud on his calves cap crooked, asking me to tie his cleats too tight so he'd feel fast. "Brandon," I said, "we can stop rowing against each other. Let it go." His nostrils flared. "You want decent, write a check. 8 years, market rate." "Markets don't measure breakfasts," I said, "or rides home from urgent care." He stepped in and lowered his voice. "You have money now. You can afford to feel righteous. I don't forget debts." I felt it then, the clean steel click of a line going live. The judge had given us law. The hallway had given us witnesses. The next part belonged to me. "Son," I said, surprised at how much the word still meant, "I've got 6 words for you." Marla's hand tightened above my elbow. Earl stood in the doorway like a lineman spotting a ladder. Pastor watched from a bench as if a hymn might start. The soda machine dropped a can with a hollow clunk. The deputy shifted his weight, not alarmed, just ready. Brandon lifted his chin. "Say them." I looked him straight in the eye, so there'd be no misunderstanding now, or later took one breath for the 40 years behind us and the unknown ahead, and opened my mouth. "My will no longer includes you." I said it like a man snapping a breaker, firm, no flourish. The words hung in the courthouse hallway and landed where they needed, to the deputy's still face, the bank lady's lifted brow, Pastor Rick's small nod, Earl's jaw unclenching. Brandon blinked like he'd been clipped by a low branch he didn't see. Kelsey made a small pin-on-tile sound. What Brandon barked, voice bouncing off tile. "You can't." I said, "and I have." Marla's voice slid in level. "To avoid confusion, here's a written summary." She handed him a clean cover sheet, no dollar figures, just buckets. Revocable trusted trade scholarship at Ivy Tech, 529 for Lily Modest gifts to St. John's and VFW Post 8 Meijer 7, and a house held for Walter's lifetime use. No distribution to you is contemplated. Kelsey reached. Brandon kept the page and skimmed. "So you're cutting me off?" "I'm cutting off the pressure," I said. "Money isn't a prize for whoever shouts hardest. It's a tool. I'm using it to fix what I can." The elevator dinged. 2 men in shirt sleeves stepped out, took one look, and steered wide like fishermen reading weather. Brandon's mouth went thin. You humiliate me in there, then you take a victory lap in the hall. No, I said. You filed, I answered. Now I'm speaking plain so there's no confusion later. Marla slid a second document forward. Mutual no contact and non-disparagement. If you sign, everyone keeps finances private and channels any necessary communication through counsel. If you decline, any harassment will be met with a request for protective order and fees. The soda machine dropped a can hollow clunk. The deputy shifted, not speaking. Protective order, Kelsey said. Against family? Against behavior, I said. Family can choose better. Brandon stared past me at the glass doors where winter light flashed off hoods the way river light does when the wind is up. His jaw worked. You're choosing strangers over blood. I'm choosing peace over noise, I said, and Lily over pride. Pastor stood. He didn't preach. There's still time to take a quieter road. Kelsey crossed her arms. 8 years wasn't free. 8 years wasn't empty, Pastor said, and the court just told you where the law falls. Choice is what's left. Brandon glanced at the summary again, at the line that said 529 for Lily. Something flickered the boy who'd grin at a fastball, then it went out. Keep your papers, he said, shoving them back. Buy a pew, buy a plaque. I'll tell Lily you picked a library over your son. You will not pull her into this, I said. She gets bedtime school and ball games. She doesn't get weaponized. He stepped closer. The deputy cleared his throat. Brandon stopped. You always liked an audience. I liked line crews, I said. Witnesses aren't an audience. They keep us honest. Marla held out a pen. You can sign and be done, or don't. But hear me as counsel. Any further attempts to access Mr. Haynes's accounts, public demands for money or defamatory statements will be treated as harassment. He stared at the pen like it might leak. He didn't take it. Kelsey's nails clicked on her purse, small, angry metronome. A woman from the benches passed folder to her chest. I'm with Three Rivers, she said to me softly. We don't discuss accounts. Your privacy matters. She gave Brandon and Kelsey a steady look. Families get rough. Banks are boring. Today, boring is kinder. Thank you, I said, because gratitude should be public too. Brandon blew air. Are we done? We can be, I said. I won't chase you and I won't carry you. I'll be at Lily's games. You can stand on the other side of the fence if you need to. He looked like he wanted to spit, then didn't. He folded the summary twice and jammed it into his pocket like spite was origami. I won't sign, he told Marla. Do your worst. We'll do our best, she said. That usually looks quieter. He turned and went. Kelsey's heels ticked fast. The glass doors took them like a current takes a small boat, no ceremony, just gone. The hallway resumed its regular hum, HVAC, a printer, far-off feet going about their own errands. Earl touched my elbow, a lineman's way of asking if I was still clipped in. You good? I am, I said, surprised by my own answer. The 6 words had done their job. Not punishment, not brag. A line clean enough to paint a house with. Pastor nodded toward the doors. He heard you, he said. Maybe not the way you wanted, but he heard. I slid my copy of the summary into my inside pocket. It sat there like a squared-off future. Coffee, I said. Cardboard and mercy. We stepped outside. The air held the last of winter like a stubborn habit. On the steps, I looked up at a sky the color of a wrench and thought about electricity, how it never stops being itself, how it takes the easy path unless you build a better one, how it'll kill you if you pretend rules don't apply. I'd spoken 6 words. Now the current would pick its path. We took the stairs to the basement cafeteria with square tables that wobbled. The coffee tasted like someone had rinsed a grill pan, and I was grateful for it anyway. The world kept being ordinary. Next steps are simple, Marla said, stirring sugar she wouldn't taste. If the posts go back up, screenshot and send. If anyone at a bank hears from him about your accounts, they'll call me. If he shows at your door, you call me, and then non-emergency. No porch arguments, no late-night texts. Quiet is your friend. Quiet I can do, I said. Pastor wrapped both hands around his cup. Guard your tongue and your hope, he said. Tell Lily you're proud of her without telling her why you said that today. Earl nodded. We'll take the long way back, he said. Let the steam blow off before we hit the post. We rose, left our cups, and climbed into a day that hadn't changed its mind. Brick felt like brick. Wind felt like wind. Somewhere in town, a line buzzed on a pole I used to know by the sound. I patted my pocket to feel the squared paper again and walked toward the truck. I didn't sleep much that night, but it wasn't the old hammering worry. It was the kind that comes after a storm when the yard is a mess and yet the roof held. I swept my small kitchen, oiled a squeaky cabinet, and brewed coffee too strong. The house I'd bought in Waynedale felt more mine than it had the week before. The furnace hummed like a content dog. I set the trust papers on the table and sat with them the way you sit with a map before a long drive, not to stare at roads but to remember you can choose. The next days were quiet in the useful ways. Three Rivers called to confirm a note on my file. Pastor checked in with a joke about casserole diplomacy. Marla emailed 2 sentences, "No new filings, keep your routine." I did. I fixed Mrs. Engel's porch step and replaced 3 flickering bulbs in the VFW hall. I bought lumber, painted a roof blue little box, set 2 4x4s in concrete, and mounted a little free library. I filled it with paperbacks I'd read twice and 1 lineman's safety manual, because you never know what book will keep a kid's fingers safe. The smear post disappeared. Nobody texted to say so, and I didn't ask. Once late, a message from Brandon arrived. "Fine, make your choices." I typed nothing and slept. On Friday, Ivy Tech printed a simple certificate with my name under a scholarship I wish someone had offered when I was 19. I took the paper to the bursar, asked somebody to check the commas, and left a check with a hand that didn't shake. The woman at the counter asked what to call the scholarship. I said Haynes Tools and Safety, then added, "No fuss, just make it easy for a kid who wants to work." I told nobody but Earl Pastor and the God who minds the ditches. The money wasn't a trumpet, it was a toolbox. Spring warmed the maples a leaf at a time. Lily's League announced family night at Parkview Field, with fireworks and names on the scoreboard for folks who'd helped the kids get new helmets. Earl and I bought hot dogs that dripped and cheered from the outfield seats. The PA crackled between innings with the same small-town cadence I grew up loving. Lost keys at the third baseline, a birthday wave for someone named Deb, a thank you to the tire shop for the batting cage. In the 5th inning, the sun lowered to that good angle where everything honest gets its picture taken. The scoreboard flicked to a list that scrolled like slow credits. A few names drew claps. Then the PA voice read, "Special, thanks to the Haynes Tools and Safety Fund and the Haynes family supporting trades education and this season's helmets." A few folks turned because Haynes isn't rare here, but it isn't common either. I kept my eyes on the diamond. Lily at shortstop stomped her cleats, once looked toward the fence like a kid checking for migrating geese, and saw us. She raised her glove an inch, the private hello kids give from a field, because they've been told not to wave. My throat tightened in the place that says you're proud, but keep it to yourself. 2 seats over a man in a tin caps cap said, "You Haynes, not nosy curious." "Yes, sir," I said. "Good of you," he said, eyes on the play. That was the whole sentence, and it landed better than a speech. After the game, fireworks thumped up into a sky that had decided to be kind. The booms shook the aluminum risers and rattled cups. Colors spilled and then faded before you could name them. I felt the old lesson settle again, how energy spends itself and goes quiet, and how the quiet is what you live in. We were easing toward the gate when Brandon and Kelsey came down the steps with Lily. She was grinning the way 10-year-olds grin when they've made a double play by accident and everyone claps anyway. Brandon's hand was on her shoulder. He saw me and stopped. Kelsey started to say something and then didn't. "Good game," I said to Lily. I kept my voice like a fence, clear, not sharp. "Thanks, Grandpa," she said. "Coach says my footwork's better." She looked at Brandon. He nodded. There was a beat where adults decide what to do in front of a child. I didn't fill it. Brandon cleared his throat. "I saw the scoreboard," he said. "The scholarship." "Tools and safety," I said. "Helmets, too." "That's good," he said. He didn't look at me when he said it, but his voice was his 6th grade voice, the one he used after making a throw from third he thought was too hard. Kelsey squeezed Lily's shoulder and said nothing. "I'll be at the Saturday game," I said to Lily. "Second base, right?" "Maybe," she said. "Coach moves me around when Carla's late." "Versatile," I said. "That's what they call that." We let the crowd carry us toward the gate. No forgiveness was offered or asked, no apology was spoken, but no gasoline hit the coals either. Sometimes its 68 piece looks like a plain hallway where nobody shouts. June arrived. I mowed my small rectangle, sharpened the blade on the porch steps, and waved at neighbors I was learning by dog names first and given names later. Once at dusk, a text came from Kelsey. "We took down the post. We'll keep it offline." I answered appreciated. That was enough. On a hot Tuesday, I found Brandon on my front walk, hands empty. He stood under the maple shade like a man waiting for the solicitor sign to go up. "I'm not here to argue," he said. "I'm dropping off Lily's schedule. She wants you at the picnic." "Put it in the library box," I said. He set the paper inside like mail and stepped back to the sidewalk on his own without being asked. He added, "I'm figuring things out." He didn't ask for money or back pay or a lift. He nodded once and walked. The trust sat heavier in my pocket and lighter on my heart. That Saturday, Pastor opened the church gym for a rummage sale. I brought a crate of tools old men had left to widows who didn't know what to do with half-inch sockets. A boy with quiet eyes picked up a ratchet like it was a living thing. "How's it work?" he asked. I showed him palm over palm the way my father's hands did mine and told him about leverage and respect. He said, "Thank you like a vow." Late that night, after I rinsed the cooler and set the porch chair back where it belonged, I thought about the 6 words again. They weren't a thunderclap. They were a switch. You can wire a house to trip the breaker where it hurts least. That's all I did. The money will outlive me. The boundary will too. If you've walked this far with me, you probably know a little about storms and kitchens and how families find the edges of themselves when money drops into the room. Here's what I learned. And what I hope you carry: love is not rent. Respect is not optional. And quiet is something you build on purpose. If this story stirred thoughts about your own boundaries, or a kid you might help, or an apology you could make while people can still hear it, do that. And if you'd like more ordinary, true-feeling stories, told plain and steady, share this with someone who needs a calm word, leave a note so I know you were here, and subscribe so we can sit together for the next one.